Hello guys, welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a REST API for inserting data using Express, right, in Node.js. Okay, so if you see this image, right, so we see routes, controllers, models, database, right. In the last video I've created models using Mongoose and explained why we need models, right? So in this video I'm going to create controllers and routes. So before I create the controllers and routes, I would want you to understand what is a controller here. So controller is nothing but a business logic or a code logic or implementation code that you are going to write in your application. Okay, and routes is a place where the application handles the user's request, okay, and identifies the corresponding controller method and does the business logic. So in Express application, routes plays the major role as it is called directly by the users via endpoints, right? So the HTTP endpoints. So that is what is explained here. So users connect with the Express application with the help of these routes. Okay. So the routes will then redirect the request to the corresponding controllers, and the controllers will do the required business logic with the help of models, right? Because the models are already been connected to the database. Okay. So I'm going to show you practically. So I'm going to use this application that we used in our previous video, right? So we created a expense model. In our previous video, I'm using the same application. I'm running npm start. Okay. So in the start command, I have used nodemon index.js so that if I run this command now, it will run this command at the backend, right? Our application started, right? So I go to the application now. Here I create a folder called controllers, and inside which I'm going to create a new file and say expense.js, right? So I'm going to import the model because I've already told you, I have already shown you the controllers will read or write data to the database with the help of what? The models, right? So we need models here. The models have already exported it here. Okay, if you can see it, module.exports, right? So I'm going to import it here. So I'm going to say expense is equal to require double dot slash. Okay, so we are going out of this folder and finding a new folder. That's why we use double dot slash. We need models, right, slash expense. Okay, so here I'm going to say exports dot create expense equal to async. It is an async operation. As we all know, REST API should be an asynchronous function, right? Because it connects to the database and reads or write data to the database. It will take some time to do that. So we create it as a async function. So we have three parameters: request, response, and next, right? So I'm going to have a try catch because I'll not know whether this code will run correctly or not. So here I say expense is equal to await. So if we use async, we should use await because this piece of code is made to wait until it is executed. Okay, so expense dot, so I'm going to use create mongoose function. So I'm going to have request dot body, right? And I'm going to send status of 200, not 200. I'm going to say 201 because we are going to create a resource in the database. So status for creating a resource, status code for creating a resource is 201, and JSON So inside it, going to say success was true, and data is going to be the created data. Okay, so whatever data is created is sent as response. Yes, we are using response, so it is sent as response along with the success true, right, as a JSON. Okay, so whenever error occurs, we don't know whether this code will execute or not. So whenever the error occurs, we are sending JSON success is false, and data is going to be not data. This should be error, and no data is inserted, right? So I'm saving it. So once I save it, nodemon automatically restarts our application, right? The changes are reflected, right? Perfect. So I uh, go to the solution explorer and create one more folder called routes, and I'm going to have a file called route dot sorry not route, it is also going to be expense.js. It is not at all wrong to have the same file name in different folders because the files are in different folders, right? So I'm going to import express because we are going to use the router class inside express. So I say express const router is express dot router, right? So this class is very useful for us to route the request, okay, to the corresponding controller function, right? So I'm going to import the controller function here. So require dot slash controller slash expense. Okay, and the method inside it is create expense, right? The IntelliSense is able to give us the function name. Okay, so since I'm going to insert some records to the database, right, I'm going to use the post method, right? So as we all know, HTTP post method will help us to insert data, right, to the database. Okay, so get is for getting the resource from the database, and put is for updating a resource, and delete is for deleting a record, right? So since we are going to insert some record, I'm using post here. So I'm going to pass create expense, and I'm exporting this function so that I can use this function anywhere elsewhere in our application, right? So I go to index.js and I'm going to import const expense. So I'm going to import the routes here, require dot slash. So this is a common file, index.js. So we are right now in the index.js file, so we don't have to move outside of this folder. So I'm using a single dot here, and the folder is route slash expense. Okay, perfect. And so here I'm going to use a middleware called app.use, and inside it I'm going to have a URL expense slash v1 comma expense. So whenever the application gets a URL request like this, right, so we got an error. So we get this issue cannot read property length of undefined. So I don't see any issues here. Let me go to the controllers. So I think expense require. So we have imported the models here. So I think it's fine. So come to routes. Fire expense. Yeah. So here should be slash. So I think this is what the error is. So I save it. Yeah, correct. So the route should have the URL like this. Okay. So whenever we get the URL like this, okay, it will redirect to this route. And if we see in this route, we see router.route. So whatever URL we get, it sends, I mean, it redirects, or it will call this corresponding controller function, which is what we have written in the controllers folder, right? So, and in the controllers folder, I have already said you with the help of mongoose model, right? We are able to create an object, okay, or create a record with the user input, right? So the request.body here is nothing but the data that has been sent to this API by the user, right? I'll show you once I test it with Postman, right? So we have created everything, guys. So we'll compare it with this image. So as I said you in this index.js, you can see whenever we get this route, right? Whenever we get this URL request, this redirects to this corresponding route. That's it. That is what they have said here. And from the routes, right, it identifies the corresponding controller. Okay, so here it identifies whenever the post request comes, it identifies this controller and calls it, right? And in the controllers, we read or write data. Here we are writing a data. We are creating a new record, okay, with the help of models. So the models that I have created in the previous video, okay, we have implemented schema to the columns in the database, right? So the models will connect to the database, and the code logic or the business logic is written in controllers, and the routes are redirected to the corresponding controllers from the user's request. Okay, so we have implemented everything. So guys, I'll show you how this API works, okay, with the help of Postman, a tool for testing APIs, the next video, right? So stay tuned for my next video, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, bye.